All right, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Kirkwood Meadows Public Utility District's Regulars Board Meeting on Friday, April 3rd, 2026. Calling this meeting to order. Let's do agenda item number 2, roll call.
Vittorotanda,
Here.
Epstein,
Here.
Schroeder. Was here. Hooker.
Here.
Dornberg here.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to announcements.
We would like to welcome everyone to the regularly scheduled board meeting for the Kirkland Meadows PUD. If you're attending online, please use the raise your hand function. If you'd like to speak, if you are here in person, please go to the podium so our microphone can pick up your voice.
And I see John on here, so if you could promote him and have him speak and note his attendance, please. Great, thank you. And I think we have one other announcement from Peter.
Yeah, I would like to take this opportunity to briefly acknowledge the passing of former PUD board member, Frank Majors. Frank served on the board for 13 years, from 1998 to 2011. As a member of the Personnel Committee, he was particularly adept at resolving disputes among employees and staff. And more importantly, he was really prolific at incentivizing staff members to achieve certifications and take tests and try to advance themselves. So he was just a very kind and generous individual and one of the best people I've ever served with. And wow. I'd just like to take a moment of silence to remember him. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing that.
Sending our best wishes to his family. Thanks for letting us know here. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, corrections to the agenda or the consent calendar. I don't hear any. Okay. We'll move on to agenda item number 5, comments from the audience. This is your opportunity to address the board on any short non-agenda items that are within our subject matter jurisdiction. We can't have long discussion or action on matters not germane to our district and matters not on our agenda for the Brown Act. I'll see if there's anyone with hands, comments. I don't see anyone in the room here. Okay, I don't see any comments from the audience. Written comments, we have one written comment that came in earlier today, I believe, that was printed and available here. It is more specific to an agenda item later, so I'll read that out, I think, later as a part of that agenda item, if that's okay.
That would be good.
Okay. We'll move on to agenda item number 7, adoption of the consent calendar.
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Oh, actually, nope. Sorry, we have to do roll call vote. Apologies. Roll call vote.
Oh, because John isn't sure.
No, because John's remote. We can only do voice vote if we're all here. We can do roll call votes.
Vittorotanda.
Aye.
Epstein.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Hooker.
Aye.
Dornberg, aye.
Okay, great. Agenda item 8, we did not have anything brought forward for discussion. We're going to move on to a closed session for agenda item number 9. 9A is closed session regarding general manager retirement. 9B is closed session regarding general manager appointment, and 9C closed session regarding conference with labor negotiators. We'll do this closed session item and we'll be back here as soon as we can. So I'll pause this and we'll move. Okay, are we back? Everything up? Okay. All right, so we are reconvening after a closed session for agenda item 9. In terms of reporting out from that agenda topic, for agenda item 9A, the general manager, Rick Ansell, has notified the board that he will not seek to renew his 1-year contract and therefore retire from district service, effective at the close of business on September 4th, 2026. Furthermore, Rick has notified the board that he will also step down from his volunteer service as the fire chief of the Kirkwood Volunteer Fire Department at the same time. Agenda item 9B. The board has asked labor negotiators to explore options and report back to the board. 9C, I have appointed myself and John Schroeder to be the labor negotiators to fill the general manager position. We will have many opportunities in the coming months to further discuss this, but I want to take this opportunity now to just stop and say thank you to Rick. He has over 20 years of service in the district, over more than that to the volunteer fire department. Come September 4th, this will be a very different place without you here. So I just want to express immense gratitude on behalf of the board and the community that we really appreciate your decades of committed service to this district, and that we will celebrate you more over these next couple of months. But just wishing you and Marcy and the rest of your family all the best in your upcoming retirement, and just want to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Board.
All right, we will move on to agenda item 10. 10A is the fire assessment approval. If the proposed fire assessment was approved at the 9 a.m. public hearing, we would consider adopting resolution 26-04, approving the levying of the assessment. The initiative did not pass, so there is nothing to discuss for agenda item 10A. So we will now move on to agenda item 10B, fire assessment non-approval. So if the proposed fire assessment was not approved at the 9 a.m. meeting, the directors can discuss and consider next steps. So that is where we are right now. We are, I thought, we're a good place to start for many people, I think, that are on this call right now, attended the session this morning. But I think it'd be good if we could pull up the results and just state them in this meeting as well for anyone who didn't attend earlier. And so you can see here that we had, if you could maybe zoom in a little bit more there, I might appreciate it.
Oh.
There we go.
Or that way.
So we sent out, I think I'm restating numbers that were stated by our engineer earlier today. 1,088 mailed ballots. We had 555 returned. Again, these are APNs. These are not individual people or homeowners. So an individual entity could have had more than one ballot in that count. So just keep that in mind. We had a 51% return rate, which the engineer indicated was a very high return rate for an initiative such as this. So that indicates a really great participation from our community, and a lot of gratitude to everyone for being able to do that and jump in. As you can see in the table here, that the number of returned ballots, so again, that's the APNs that returned was 398 in favor for a total assessed amount of $103,000. And then 155 APNs returned no ballot with $141,000. Because this is a majority protest of the benefit received, the 57% weighted assessment against the initiative indicates that it fails, according to the way that this ballot initiative works. So that leaves us, in the position, and maybe if you want to bring up the slide that we showed during the hearing here, yeah, this one. This is a slide that I created back for the December community forum, where Rick and I went through the whole history of what we've been doing the last 2.5 years leading up to this final tallied vote today, and why we went to, the place that we went to, as it is indicated here. As I said during the community forum in December, and today and other days, the coloring on here is completely subjective and something I made up. So bear with us on that. But it's all the things that we looked at for the last 2.5 years. And the initiative that we came forward with through this 218 ballot initiative was that the one option that had no red in it, meaning it covers our issues with leadership, staffing, training, and funding. And so that was rejected today. That column that's highlighted with a yellow border, with no red column, the values in the column was what was rejected today. The options that we have to the right of that are the two options that were more expensive, which we had seen rejected earlier during Measure E. And then the other options that's out there is divest or try to maintain some level of volunteer service with some way of solving the leadership option, which would maybe be the column to the left of the one that is highlighted in the yellow box today. Those are honestly, I've said this during the December forum. I've said this last week when KCA invited Rick and I to talk about this. Those are the two options that I personally envision that we could pursue. But that's my opinion, and I'm just trying to lay out the framework of where we are and where we've been. And I would say, clearly, we need to get buy-in from not just our residential customers, and we see almost 75% or so, especially when you consider our largest commercial customer had 43 of those APNs of the 155. I think we had that would push the yes votes essentially up into 80%. Given that we know how one of our largest commercial customers in the resort voted in this case. We need to get their buy-in if we're going to raise more money, if we want to do that. And so that's pretty clear at this point, given the way that the ballot that we just saw, or at least how I interpret it to be pretty clear, given the ballot that we just saw and the results that we saw in terms of yes votes versus yes dollars. That's my summary of where we've been last 2.5 years and where we've got to today. And given that we just talked about in closed session that our volunteer fire chief will be stepping down in September, that gives us a 5-month window from today, essentially, to solve this leadership row across the top there. Because that is one of our concerns, is that having someone who is trained sufficiently to train our firefighters. We have great firefighters. We have a great assistant chief right now, but we just lost 2 captains in the last 3 months, basically taking jobs elsewhere. Life changes, and that's what happens when you have a volunteer service. So we've lost 2 people of our leadership. We'll soon lose our fire chief, and our firefighters. We do our best. I say we because I've been doing it and trying to do my best out there as well. But we're all trained at different levels, and having someone as a leader who can help us making sure that we're following law, guidelines, standard operating procedures to keep ourselves safe and the community that we are servicing safe, and not subjecting us to legal issues or challenges or anything like that, or liability that we would not want to be facing with an untrained staff. Rick, did I miss anything in that summary?
No, it's a very good summary, and you're right. We're going to continue to do the best we can with the available volunteers that show up for calls, with whatever skill set they have. And just a note to the community, we appreciate their efforts and their votes. But I guess what I'm trying to say is our doors are always open for volunteers to come help, but just because someone walks through the door doesn't mean that they'll be qualified, certified, capable of doing very much. So once again, the department relies on the help from outside agencies to support our operations. And so for the next 5 months, I'll be doing whatever I can to try to change that in a way toward the positive, but there are no guarantees. And it's going to continue to be a challenge for the fire department. But thank you.
Let's go to any questions or clarifications on any of this in terms of the 218 process, the outcome, or the options that we had ahead of us. I'll open up to community as we typically do. If there are any hands up online, or if anyone wants to join here in the room to ask a question, please do it now, and then we'll have board discussion. I don't see anyone in the room, and I don't see any hands up. So let's go ahead and move to board discussion. I've given an introduction. I welcome thoughts. John, I know you're online here. Thoughts? What do we do next?
Yeah, what is there, Rick, do you think there's a potential option to hire a fire chief as a consultant for them to try to continue the volunteer program that we've had?
Yeah, I would certainly recommend that we look into that, and we attempt to try to find somebody who's willing to lead the department on a contract basis. As you know, if we turn them into an employee, that it creates a bigger hurdle, but more importantly, more costs that we don't have, that this ballot is not passed. So that would be my first approach, is to look around to see if there's someone who's willing to help lead the department moving forward, to assist the assistant chief in moving forward.
Right, and so that essentially would be the column to the left of the one in the gold box, which is finding some sort of consulted or hired through Alpine
Contractor.
County or something else that would not necessarily be us starting our own. That would be that option essentially. I mean, I guess we could consider hiring our own, but that would certainly be the most expensive of those three, I would imagine.
Yeah, if we actually hire somebody, make them an employee, like I
Yeah.
mentioned before, it changes things quite a bit. So a consultant or someone who wants to volunteer,
Right.
who's certified, skilled, that'd be better.
So I agree. That's kind of where I would like to see us go as soon as we can here, because we only have about 5 months. And I would also have to say that the budget for doing this will have to fall within what we have available for us to allocate. If I remember correctly, the current property tax allocation that we've allocated to fire would be from the 218 that just closed was $480,000 per year. Again, that was pulling in the dollars that we changed from the water wastewater studies last year. We do have an agenda item later today where there could be potentially more dollars available if we were to so choose that, but currently we have budgeted $480,000. And so that is, I guess that would be in addition to the current assessment that we did not remove, right? So that would be a little bit more, tens of $1,000s more from that.
60,000 a year.
Right. So it would push us up a little bit higher in terms of our total budget. But again, given that we weren't able to get the 218 passed to raise money to do this, my inclination is that we will have to fund this with what we have without raising more money from the community via an election process or via balloting process, I should say.
Another potential avenue would be to do another proposal of what is the CFD?
Special
Yeah.
tax.
Yeah, the special tax that because we attempted that with Measure E, but it was a 1.8 million. Perhaps we could find a solution that's more economical and try to do that approach, the special tax.
Correct. And that would be another option we could consider. And just to remind everyone, a special tax is a different voting mechanism than a 218. In particular, it is it's not by weighted benefit assessment. It's by, I think it was registered voters.
Registered voters, yes.
So instead of having a commercial customer having a significant dollar benefit, or a single large home having more benefit than another large home or smaller home, everyone gets a single weighted vote in that regard. And so it is a different mechanism. And we had 75% approvals from the way that we looked at there. So I remember it's a 2/3 majority. It would have passed if this had been in that same value in that mechanism. So the district could pursue going that mechanism and seeing if that would pass.
Yeah, I mean, it's an indicator that's why I asked the question about the vote. It's an indicator, although, some commercial had more than one vote. But we're much more in the hunt, I think, with the special tax.
I agree. So that is another option that we could pursue. That would take a long time to do.
And it's collected by property tax, so the implementation date would be a function of property tax
Right.
as submittal. So if you don't make August, then it's the following year.
Right. So there is a bit of a lag. So it doesn't solve our immediate needs potentially. And so there are hurdles with that process. Really ideally.
2027 issue.
Correct. The earliest we could probably get it implemented. So, but it is an avenue we could pursue. I mean, I think again, we had great yes ballots, super high turnout of that. So it's a good indication that we put together this proposal in the gold box that I think most people wanted. So that's a good indication, I think, for us that we should keep pursuing to try to maintain a fire department here. That's how I take away from this, that we shouldn't just divest immediately. So that's where we are. So I would say at this point, what we did last time, about a year and a change ago, whatever, 2.5 years ago in some ways, we had a temporary advisory committee who went and pursued these options. I don't know if Rick, we need that right now, or if this is something staff thinks they could pursue. I kind of will ask you your opinion on that, on how you'd want to handle this, but I am open to throwing board effort at this too, because it's obviously something that I think our community in general wants, even though it didn't pass today, that we need to move fast on. So how can we support investigating this?
Because I think this is such an important thing, obviously, I think a temporary advisory committee would be recommended to, again, try to solicit and or open the doors to maybe with counties. I certainly will start the process with the regional fire chiefs to see if there's an avenue there to find somebody. But again, the relationship with the counties and the temporary advisory committee, I think, is very important. So we should continue with it.
Okay, last time we did this, it was myself and John. I'm happy to continue doing it. John, I don't know if you have interest. Does anyone else? John, you're on mute.
Yeah, I know. I was waiting for other people. I was waiting for others to speak up.
Well, I will take it on with you, Rick, and if any other board members.
I'll help you
By
with it.
yourself.
Yeah, I'll help you with it if other board members don't wanna.
I'm willing to, I'm willing to, I don't want anything, I don't want too much to fall on one board member.
Together, and then.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
John and I were on the calls last year with Alpine County. I think
Right,
you
right.
and I did it before that.
All right, well, we can do it again if you want.
Would you like to do it this time?
Of course.
All right, John, are you willing to cede temporary advisory committee to membership to Bob with me on this?
Yeah, I'm always willing to help, but thanks, Bob.
Sure.
All right. So I will appoint Doug and Bob to be the temporary advisory committee to pursue new options beyond
Once more into the breach.
once more. We'll consider the options, I think, to be really clear here, we will consider options of contracting services. We will consider potentially how hiring would look like. We kind of know what that is already, but contracting as a consultant, contracting with fire chiefs that are regional. I think we should also look at this CFD process and see what that timeline and just know what that is, so that we can state very clearly the fastest that we could turn something like that around and potentially have that out for ballot and potentially collected. And then I think we absolutely should make sure that we know what divestment looks like. We're not able to solve this in any meaningful way, and maybe in a cost-effective way. Maybe we'll have options that the board will decide that even to contract this out for the level of service that we would provide, it's not worth it. And so I want to make sure that we know what divestment looks like as well. So I think those are the options I'd like to see us pursue, and we'll get started on that and report back at the next meeting.
I just want to make sure that we don't pretend we can operate a volunteer fire department without a fire chief. That if there isn't one available, then there will not be a fire department.
Good point. Rick, could I ask, what is the state of the volunteer group at this point? The number of volunteers, those who, I imagine the number is larger than those, the core who can really contribute and are certified and are here close enough. What's the state of this group of volunteers? And I just learned that we've lost 2 captains in the last couple of months. Now the news goes to that group of people that the vote failed and that the fire chief's retirement is announced in just a few months. What do you imagine will happen to the core group?
Well, like every year, this time of year, we lose a few volunteers. So currently we have 11 or 12 fairly active volunteers. Of those, 3 are EMTs. One of those EMTs relocates to Santa Cruz area. So we'll be down to 2 EMTs, myself and Jessica. The skill set level of all the volunteers is, some have had years of volunteer training, in-house training. I'm pleased to announce they've all received the Title 22 First Aid Required course, which is something you need to run a volunteer fire department. All the volunteers have AED, CPR, airway administration, i.e. oxygen certification. So that's a positive. But the negatives are, again, we've got volunteers who started a month ago. We have other volunteers that have been around for a little while, but they're not firefighter ones in the state of California for structure fire, meaning that they're not at a skill set level where they could go into a burning building with an SCBA on and save a life per se. They're not, all the volunteers have some wildland experience, but
They have some what experience?
wildfire experience.
Okay.
We can do some simple things, but you know, it's a skill set that takes a long time to get comfortable with and certified. We'll work with Alpine County to get them to a level that they're proficient. And more importantly, of the volunteers, there are really 3 that live in the valley. The balance drive in, they sometimes volunteer their time to be on call, but if those 3 are on vacation and or just not available, it's going to be extended response as we've discussed in the past.
Yeah.
From outside agencies, including myself, to come and respond to the emergency.
Right, and so I just want to be clear, the option, like, I've said this in every form I can, the option, the column on the left is the one that we have been in today, and that is the one that, as Bob alluded to, will not, like, there will be a change. That's our reality. We tried to move the one to the gold, that was rejected. We're moving to the one to the left. And so to your question, Chris, there are 2 boxes there that are still red, right? It is staffing, availability, and the training of those volunteers. I know I see Greg Kiskinen on here. We were at a KCA meeting last week, and he had indicated that we're welcome to come to their staff meetings and make sure that we're trying to recruit to, continue to do what we've done in the past to get more volunteer from their end. And they would make them available, which is much appreciated. And we'll certainly take them up on that offer to try to get EMTs that are ski patrol. But I will say the door has always been open and will continue to be open. So anyone who wants to come volunteer, we appreciate that the resort wants to continue to endorse that, which we appreciate. And one of our assistant chief is an employee of the resort, so we appreciate that. But we need to have people show up. So we will we'll still have those 2 red boxes, even if we're able to find a solution for leadership.
I agree. And I'll be honest, since Measure E, I've heard a lot of empty promises from the ski resort about we've got EMT patrollers, we've got staff available, we're willing to do whatever we can, but I have not seen that.
Yep.
And the latest comment by Greg was that, I've never come to one of their staff meetings. I've never been invited to their staff meeting. So I rely on my assistant chief who works for the ski resort to seek out individuals who might be interested, and he's done a very good job with that, and we appreciate that. But again, hopefully the resort hears the message that, we need the help, and please invite me to your staff meetings. I'm happy to come and tell the volunteers that you might have interested to come and support the fire department.
Yeah.
And that doesn't deal with April through November.
Exactly. We're 2 a.m.
When the Barton Clinic is also not available at that time.
Yeah.
So so anyway, and I think there was a comment too, like, remember even though April through November, you might think is a low time, it actually is a very bimodal call volume. We have a lot in the winter and a lot in the summer, and then it's really just the shoulder couple of months where it actually dips down. So it's right after the resort closes, and then right in the fall, in September, October. The summer is actually a very busy month for our set of months. So just because Barton's not here, we have lots of calls, search and rescues, lots of things that are happening around the valley. And so that's where we are. I think we're okay to move on.
Yeah.
Okay. I do see a hand up. Sorry, I'm just seeing that now. I'll entertain this one. Caroline, if you want to see your hand up, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak.
Okay, I have a suggestion for possibly finding leadership. I suspect there are hundreds of fire captains and above officers in the Sacramento and San Francisco Bay areas that love to ski. I personally know of many of them. My friends are all too old to do this, but if you could somehow put the word out that you're looking for a consultant or even a volunteer officer who would love to come up to Kirkwood and maybe already does come up to Kirkwood, it would be a way to look for some leadership who would be enthused and knowledgeable about the valley and the community and the mountains and the terrain. So that's a suggestion I hope you would listen to.
Thanks, Caroline. Happy to pursue that. Thank you. Okay, let's go on to the next agenda item then. 10C is 2026 Russ Debt Management Strategy. Administrative Manager Gomez, who we get to introduce and say that for the first time. So Amanda promoted into this role, and congratulations and welcome.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Deep breath.
I know.
There you go, you're clear.
I'd like to begin the staff report by touching on a few key points before we begin. As outlined in the staff report, KMPUD incurred USDA RUS debt as a financing method to fund the Out Valley line and overall connection to the power grid. Interest and principal payments are due on that debt quarterly, with balloon principal payments due on individual notes as they mature. Additionally, KMPUD is required to maintain 4 positive debt service ratios as part of our loan covenants. 2 of those evaluate our ability to comfortably pay annual interest on what we owe. The other 2 evaluate our ability to cover our total debt service for the year. These ratios only consider annual financial activity and do not consider reserves built in previous years. That's very important. The recommendation in this staff report is based on the necessity to comply with said USDA RUS ratios, which are based on calendar year financial performance. As part of the electric rate study, the Finance Committee reviewed upcoming quarterly debt payments, balloon principal payments, cash requirements, and RUS ratios. This was all discussed in the most recent finance meeting. And should the board decide to move forward with this recommendation, we forecast favorable ratios for 2026 and sufficient cash flow during the 5-year term of the rate study. Looking at our overall debt profile for 2026, our calendar year RUS debt payments total approximately $4.7 million this year, compared to a 5 fiscal year average of about $3.5 million per year. So it's a big difference. Looking ahead, the next 5-year term, 2032 to 2036, trends down to a more favorable average of approximately $2.7 million in debt payments due annually. From a cash flow perspective, our quarterly principal and interest payments are well within our capacity and do not present any concern. The recommendation we're discussing today seeks to address the 2 balloon principal payments that are due at maturity, one for $1.3 million in September and another for $600,000 in December. Based on our internal projections in collaboration with Russ, we are not positioned to support both principal payments due upon note maturity. This would cause us to fall short on both debt service ratios. Projections do support satisfying the full $600,000 BB8 note upon maturity. Given this, the recommendation from staff is to refinance the $1.3 million B83 note over a 7-year term. Does anyone have any questions?
John, I'll just hand it to you. I assume finance take a look at this as well.
Yeah, finance looked at this, and then we also looked at the rate structure that's in progress that will approve mid-year. And we believe that if we continue on with the new rate structure, we'll be able to fully service the debt service for the next 5 years. But we do need to roll over this particular payment this year, or we'll miss our ratios. So I guess what I'm saying is that we don't want and don't expect this to become a chronic issue every year. Like Amanda said, some of it is this is a very high year, 4.7 in debt service, and the following years are significantly lower than that. Plus, I think we've taken a hard look at the funding of the new electric rate structure, and it appears that it would be able to generate enough cash and to be able to make the future debt service payments.
Great, thank you, John. I'll open up to any community questions. I don't see anyone here in the room. I don't see any hands up online. Okay, board.
I guess the only thing I want to add is when we did these loans, we designed them so we have opportunities to pay down, try to minimize the interest rate, but try to be able to pay down. But also each time we needed money, we had to raise that much amount of money. So in designing the debt structure, we didn't design it that every single year could be below a certain amount, but that we would have opportunities to pay down debt. And in fact, we've paid down about $20 million since the start.
Mhm.
And I think the opportunity over the next 10 years to use reduction in debt service to be able to positively, help with the actual rates is quite positive. So I believe this is the right way to proceed.
I got to see this in finance committee also, so supported. But Bob, to your point, so and just so we have context, so we paid down 20 million of principal. You mean principal, right? When you say pay down?
Historically, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that is from a start, roughly, correct me please, but 12 or 13 years, how many years ago did we put this structure in place?
Feels like forever.
But about 12 years ago. And at that time, it was,
Whatever comes first.
and at that time, the loan amount was in the low 60s, right? 60 million. So the 20 in context is almost a third that we've paid down now after a dozen years, and it's about a 30-year time horizon. So that's all good.
I think 40-year, right?
Pardon?
I think 2055 is the
Or
last,
is it more than?
something like that. 2052 is the last payment, so it's a 40-year horizon.
Okay, a longer horizon than I said. The lumpiness, so the fact that this year we have a $7 million debt service, the average is 3.4. Next year, I guess, is 2 something. So it's lumpy. This is twice as large a debt service as we'll have next year. Does that kind of, Amanda, this is a question for you. Does it go like this, where there are ups and downs? How will we have another 4.5 million year in 28?
No, we will not. I have worked on long range forecasting for our Rust debt. There are years that it goes up and down, especially in the 5-year term that we're entering. And we will need to revisit this conversation strategically. But with rolling this note and with the structure of the electric rate study, we believe we're well positioned to pay all debt that comes due in the 5-year term within that 5-year term, except for this one note.
This is a bit of an aberration and an unusual year.
Yeah, we have these 2 balloon payments that are due at maturity later this year. So we're investigating this right as a strategy to deal with those. And then we're suggesting rolling that 1.3 out beyond this 5-year term into, I think we noted 7 years to 2033. The annual debt service, the average for that year is 2.3 million, which is much more manageable. and
Right.
Would be favorable to move this debt to that time frame.
What kind of interest rate are we talking about for this refinance?
Double.
They fluctuate. So we have a 3.2 blended interest rate presently across all of our loans. When I wrote the staff report, which was a few days ago, it was 4.19%. As of today, it's 4.17. It fluctuates daily.
Sure.
So we won't have a clear picture until we get closer to the actual date of rolling the note in September.
So it's not double.
Not double.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
T-bill plus an eighth, right? That's what they charge.
T-bill plus an 8. Thank you.
Any other
So
discussion?
If you have any good economic forecasts for the next 5 years, please pass them on.
Okay. Any other discussion, questions? We would need a motion for this.
I move to approve the rollover as proposed in staff report.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll
Second.
sec. Okay, good.
I will.
We'll be Bob is the second on that one. You got a little faster than John. Peter, we need to do a roll call vote, please.
Okay, Minner-Rotonda,
Aye.
Epstein.
Aye.
Schroeder,
Hi,
Duker,
Aye.
Dornbrook, aye.
All right, well, thank you. Thanks, Amanda. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item 910D of the electric rate study update. So this is General Manager Hanson and Operations Manager Benson.
Yeah.
And I will also say we have a public comment that we will address during this section as well, which I'll get to that when we get there. But we'll have our presentation first, and then we'll get to the public comments and then board discussions we typically do. Randy.
Afternoon.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon.
So what we are here today for mostly is a recap from the March meeting. We have a few updates based on public input from the last meeting and also new information that was received between then and now. Possible actions for today that we would like to discuss are a usage rate reduction based on hedge, purchase, and rec levels, a public hearing date, the choice of residential base allocation, A or B, information on the customer level, and then also revisit and confirm the decisions from the March meeting. Today's updates will include the inclusion of the 5-year capital budget data and also the Russ loan strategy that we just talked about. And if the decisions that we mentioned on the previous slide can be made today, then we are prepared to send out individualized customer letters within the next week or so, and you see a draft of that notice in. For May, we would do a public hearing and receive feedback from the customers because the individualized letters are going to give everyone a clear picture of what their rates would look like. We're also planning to present a draft of the full rate study report in May and include the report from our rate consultant that we've been working with through this process, which would leave us in June incorporating changes from public feedback and approving the rate study to go into effect July 1st. So the usage rate reduction. The hedge purchase that was approved at the last board meeting was executed, and it was executed at $57.25 a megawatt hour. So this is a $19.60 a megawatt hour savings from our last contract. And we reviewed the overall savings and what this meant to our rates. And we updated our estimate. So this is going to save on average about $100,000 a year, which is just under 1.5 cents, 1.5 cents a kilowatt hour. This was something that was brought up in public comment last time. We appreciate that. So we were able to update our estimate there. Plus, we looked at the savings from the board's consensus to reduce RECs to the RPS requirements. That means we can lower it from what we said last time, which was 23 cents a kilowatt hour to 21 cents a kilowatt hour. And that is the TAC recommendation. And I'll remind everyone that right now we're sitting at 24 cents a kilowatt hour. So this is a reduction in our electric usage rate. We do have 5-year capital and debt service plans considered here. And then we are working with our rate consultant on a base rate model for new commercial meters that's not usage based. This is a comment that we heard last time also. This will be presented at the May meeting. And as a reminder, this rate study, while we are proposing a reduced usage rate, there will be a fixed rate increase of about 4% from about $121 an EDU to $126 an EDU. And this is regardless of rate class. This has nothing to do with commercial or residential. This is just a fixed cost. So from the public comment, we had a few additional comments and TAC recommendations. One comment was lower the usage rate even further. We dropping below the 21 cents a kilowatt hour can only be done if we shift more cost into the base rate. We could do this by shifting the 3 line items that were identified in the last meeting. That's O&M, contract, and operating expenses to the base rate. But the TAC recommends waiting to do this and reevaluating over the next 2 rate studies for 2 reasons. One is because most customers currently have over 70% of their annual electric cost already in the base rate, which is a fixed cost monthly. Further shifts further limit their ability to conserve and save. And secondly, Lowering the usage rate further limits or eliminates KMPUD's additional margin, which is any additional revenue that we see if we sell more than our target of 6.8 million kilowatt hours.
Sorry to interrupt, but when you say two rate studies, you mean roughly 10 years, right?
10 years, because we get to do this every 5 years. That's right. So we recommend waiting to shift those costs, which would lower usage rates further.
That will
Either at the
come down.
5-year or at the 10-year, we could do it in it. And then the second was the allocation of EDUs, commercial versus residential. So we talked about this one, and this is the percent breakdown of who's paying what percent of our fixed cost. The TAC reviewed 2021 data versus now, and the net change between that period was 50 EDUs, so less than 2% change. So after further discussion, we recommend not making a policy decision around this allocation of commercial residential and revisiting at the next rate study. So what hasn't changed? So here we have a summary of the 2021 rate change impacts. And since 2021, so that's the last rate study, our overall cost, total cost on a per kilowatt hour basis were flat, which is good news. We have not seen major cost increases, even with the events that happened in the world in that 5-year period. We get 85% of our electric revenue from our fixed base rates, which is independent of kilowatt hour sales. And we've reduced dependence on property taxes. So both of these are good results, and we want to keep that in place. The impacts to the residential customers was more mixed. And here we have a comparison chart. Because one of the things that the 2021 rate study resulted in was lower cost for per kilowatt hour for usage greater than average. So prior to the last rate study, all of the kilowatt hours were all charged at a high rate per usage. With the introduction of the base rate, now higher usage means less per kilowatt hour. A goal for this rate study is that our residential base rates should be usage independent. So last time, well, let's go next. So we've prepared a couple of graphics here just to show average cost here. So customers who benefited from the system in place today used more than average. So you can see the 246 is the average. Usage above that was at a lower rate, 24 cents per kilowatt hour. So customers, an average customer in this category paid an average slightly less than the district's average. But customers who had a lower average paid more, which was higher than the district's average. And we want to know, how do these average costs change with the proposed rates? And you can see here that the customers with lower usage than average on the right here, they do better on average under either of the residential models that we propose consideration for today, while customers with usage higher than average only do better on average under B. And I keep saying the word average, not to be annoying, but because either of the changes that we make have positive and negative impacts on customers. So it's hard to look at these individually, but we did try. And from the comments last time, areas of concern that were mentioned were commercial and full-time residents. So we took a look at those. So for commercial, which is our top 2 lines here, since we are proposing that the base rate allocations stay the same, there's savings under either model because of the usage rate reduction that's proposed. But for residential full-time, you can see here line 3 These customers who have higher than average usage, 1B is favorable. And lower usage customers see better results under 1A. Like I say, whichever choice that is made here today, there will be positive and negative impacts. We also took a look at large commercial customers, including the KMPUD, and we see that even though the fixed rate EDU cost is increasing by about 4% for everybody, the usage rate decrease more than offsets this for these customers. That's the good news. The not so good news is next to the last line here, residential, we have 176 customers who currently pay a low base rate, and that is based on their historic usage. These customers under 1B would see an increase of $84.80 a month. And this is going to be a big increase, and why the TAC is recommending that we phase this in over 5 years. Back to good news, last line. We have some residential customers right now who are paying very, very high base rates. This looks at a customer who's currently paying $827 a month in just base rates for electric. This customer would see a savings over at the end of the 5-year period of up to $727, but again, phased in over the 5 years. So I've said 1A and 1B a lot. For a reminder, or if anybody wasn't here last time, 1A is based on the residential characteristics. So we looked at property type, building square footage, and panel size. We also, after the last meeting, we spoke to Howard and looked at a square footage only model. And looking at this model generated different impacts, but there were still significant changes, positive and negative. So we did not pursue this as a separate option. B is the only considering panel size. So this model is most like our other utilities. For water and wastewater, each residential unit is charged the same base rate. This is, in practical purposes, what we are talking about here. The 1.16 EDU, like we talked about last time, the EDU is a carryover so that we can allocate base rates for this new rate study. But we would like to change that so that the base rate for a residential customer becomes 1 unit. We can't do that until we get a decision on which model we're going with. The TAC and staff both recommend 1B here. So for commercial and KMPUD, no change in recommendation for the existing customers. EDU allocation is proposed to stay the same, only increasing by the 4% that everybody sees in base rate. New customers will be addressed in the May meeting, and that includes both regular commercial customers and the new rate class that we mentioned last time. So the 5-year capital plan, we did take a look at that to ensure that proposed rates provide enough revenue, not only for our debt servicing, like Amanda and John mentioned earlier, but also to cover our capital needs as laid out in the electric master plan. And there's a minimal impact to base rates. And then lastly, we've got a couple of slides here just to give us a visual on where we came from and where we're going as far as our debt service, because this is the single biggest driver for our electric rates. This slide shows where we started at the beginning of the last rate study, where we are right now at $43.4 million in outstanding. And then, since we get to do this again, where we are projected to be for the next 2 rate studies in 2031 and 2036. And then this shows us here a visual on the linear decline, the green line, of our interest expense every year. It goes down nicely year over year. And the rather bumpy principal payments that we see because of the way the loan draws were structured. Again, we're all moving in the right direction here. We did look at our ability to pay these off under the current revenue models. So before we go to questions, this slide just recaps the decision for the board today, which are usage rate. Should we drop it to 21 cents? When should we do the public hearing? Which residential allocation option should we choose and phase in? And the TAC recommends 1B and phasing it in at 25% a year. 4, keeping existing commercial and KMPUD base rate allocations the same. 5, the information in the customer letter. And then 6, the previously decided points for confirmation are property tax allocation at $230,000 a year. The rec purchases covering the RPS requirements. And lastly, the expense allocation, which is how much of our fixed cost goes to base versus how much in usage. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Brandy. Much appreciated. Okay, so I know we're gonna open it up to public comment here in a second. We have one written comment here, and I see Trevor, the person who gave the written comment. Trevor, hopefully you can speak to your written comment in addition to whatever else you had verbally, so I will not read it. If you could unmute and allow, we'll go from there. And then we'll open a board conversation discussion. Go ahead, Trevor, you can unmute yourself.
Amazing. Thanks, Doug.
Sure.
Mostly, I want to say thanks to the TAC and the board. I think there's been a lot of great progress and discussion and thinking over the past months. Great to see you considering a lower usage rate. It's not under 20 cents, which is a goal of mine, but it's moving in the right direction, and I think that's great. Seeing base rate proposals that are independent of usage, I think, is also super important, and it's really nice to be seeing those. So macroscopically, I'm thrilled. I have two sort of nitpicking questions. And apologies, this is just me trying to, push us as much towards what I hope is an optimal solution as possible. But the first of those questions is, in option 1B today, why isn't the EDU per customer 1? And I realize that eventually we can, redo the definition and call 1 EDU per residential customer equal to $126 a month or whatever. But I think my point is more, it seems to me like the residences are paying too much right now. And if I understand from 5 years ago, the intent behind EDU, the definition at that time was that 1 EDU was equal to the average usage of 1 residence. And so given that we're not trying to sort of rejigger this division between residential and commercial, my sense is that if 5 years ago we had done a 1B style option, the 1B option should have been that each residence was assigned 1 EDU. That would have been the way to equally distribute the residential EDUs among the residences. And that since then, 2 things have happened. One, there's this minimum EDU of 0.5. And so that bumped up a bunch of residential customers to 0.5, and it didn't affect very many commercial customers. So it added more EDUs to the residential side. And secondly, every time there's been a turnover on a house that has increased their average usage since that original 3-year period, the residential EDUs as a whole also get bumped up when the new AMU was calculated for the new owner. So anyway, that's a question is why can't that just be 1? I know that results in basically a higher dollars per EDU, which would then mostly impact the commercial customers, probably by a fraction of the amount that the residences benefit. And I understand that this is a perturbation from the current split. It just seems we maybe evolved to somewhere that's not in line with the original distribution. And then my second question, I think, is waiting till May, which is, can you give any sense of what this non-usage based commercial base rate might be based on for the new commercial customers?
Can we answer both of those?
Sure.
Great.
So.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thank you, Trevor. So as far as 1.16, like you say, this is just the tax method of maintaining current EDUs so that we can split and make the residential non-usage rate goal for base rates a possibility. It bothers me a bit too, but I'm content if we can choose a method here to know that we will be at 1 unit as we get through here. 5 years ago, when the averages were calculated, they were just that. They were averages over a 3-year period. There was no, we did not have average was calculated and then every residence was assigned a 1. We calculated an average and then calculated everyone's EDU based on that. But we are working towards this. I disagree that we are overcharging residential in this way, because our goal here is to keep what's working, and then just change to a non-usage based method here. And then as far as number 2, we don't have at this point anything to share with the non-usage based commercial. But we are working on that and we expect to have it in May.
Randy, could you elaborate on the 1.16?
Hold on, can we have Trevor? I saw I raised his hand. I want to give our commenter the opportunity to finish.
Sure,
And then
we'll probably have the same
Probably
question.
the same. Go ahead, Trevor.
I think my question is, isn't the definition of average that had we done 1B in 2021, almost by definition, it should have ended up as 1 EDU per residence? Like if the definition of an EDU is the average usage per residential customer, then if you said, what's the total number of residential EDUs, it should be just the total number of residences. And so if you divided it up then equitably, you should have said 1. So I think my question still holds, which is that how is it not the case that 1.16 basically indicates that the residents are paying 16% too much per residence relative to the original 2021 split?
Because people had a minimum of 0.5 and all that got added on top.
At a minimum.
And because people increased their usage since then. So it's about equally split between the fact that there was a minimum of 0.5, which I thought was added later as kind of a,
No.
oops, we need a minimum.
And
No.
no,
Okay.
230 was the average consumption, and that established it. And then for anybody who was less than 0.5, it was increased to 0.5 as the minimum contribution.
Okay, so right, half of this 16% is that, and the other half, I think, Bob, that you and I discussed was that there are 50 extra EDUs, even when you account for the new construction on residential side and reassignment of the employee housing, because as there's been turnover, the increased usage gets baked into the new residential EDUs. And that actually is, there's only 700 and however many residential EDUs, and so 50 is a large fraction, it's 8% or something.
Yeah,
And that feels like a true increase in burden on the residences relative to what it was in 2021 after the 0.5 minimum.
Right. So basically what you presented earlier, Brandy, is that there are 50 EDUs that you had stated that the TAC and staff are recommending to not do anything with. And I feel like the question is, I guess, why? I mean,
Well, the reason why is we never said this is the exact split in between residential and commercial. It's what it worked out to be in the math at that time. It was never the intention to say that's the lifetime split of what we should do. And, you know, it's gonna vary. It's gonna vary based on who puts in new services, but there's been no real change.
But now
And
we're
commercial.
doubling down on that split. We're continuing it. And
We're not doubling down. We're just,
continuing it.
it's
We're keeping it.
whatever it is. We're not trying to accomplish a specific split one way or the other.
Okay, but I'm confused, or I don't understand why it's a headache just to switch to 1.0.
No, that's a separate question.
Uh,
Once we know which way the board wants to go, we can raise the base rate 16%, we can redistribute it so it works out to be one.
the commercial
But we have to
residential.
change every single thing, and then you can no longer compare 1A and 1B. You can no longer compare it to the past. So it's a huge pain
Okay.
to make that now. We would do it after the board decides.
So that
what the
is the
board wants
answer.
to do.
It's a convenient weirdness 1.16 that allows us to compare different scenarios today.
Sure.
And then once we choose one, then we,
But that's not Trevor's question. I think
Trevor's
Trevor's
question is the
Trevor's question.
imbalance for
The
residential.
imbalance is the Trevor question. The reallocation of like rejiggering of what one is easy to do, but like as Bob said, we won't do that today.
That's
So
just math.
that's just
The
math.
residential part.
What Trevor's question is that from a philosophical perspective, did the board in 2020 say, we want to keep the residential allocation at this and the commercial at this, and we want that to be in perpetuity or whatever, the dollar split? And what I'm hearing is the board at that time did not make that policy decision. And therefore, what ended up happening was you did the math of kilowatt hours and usage, and that makes out math of this, and it just worked out that by kilowatt hour usage, it worked out to this percent. What I'm hearing you say, Brandy, is that what you've done is said, okay, over the last 5 years, we've seen this kilowatt hour usage, and because of our rate designs, there are more EDUs or whatever, but mathematically, it's changed a little bit. And you know, the question that I think Trevor's saying is, well, it seems like it's more towards residential now. Is that correct?
Brandy said so.
No, I don't know that I said so. I don't see any demonstrable difference. If we try to reallocate the additional EDUs, it's such a small change that we don't see large changes in commercial, we don't see large changes in residential. And since it wasn't a policy decision
Right.
at the last board rate study, all we've done is to try to move what we have that's working here to a new system. And, you know, then we reevaluate that at every rate study and say, has there been significant growth? If so, how did that change things?
Right. And so in this model, somehow, lots of residential explosion or a new chairlift on the commercial side goes in this model, we would say, okay, well, that kilowatt hour reshuffles that balance in the future, ostensibly, if this were to continue, as opposed to saying residential is X percent, commercial is this percent, now rejigger dollars within those budgets, is kind of what you're saying.
And that discussion was had at the tax since this
Right.
was brought up at the last meeting. So I
Right.
think it is something we are looking at for the.
Okay, and you're saying even if you were to rejigger in those allocations, it would be de minimis, in your opinion, from what you calculated? I mean, I think it might be worth putting, I don't know, Trevor, this is your main question. I want to speak on your behalf. So,
No, I think this is a great discussion, and that's basically all I have to say. Is it feels to me like this 1.16, especially in light of this 50 extra EDUs that have been added, is basically that the residences are paying more per residence in base rate relative to the commercial than they were 5 years ago. And if it's the decision of the board that that's fine because the residential usage increased in those 5 years and the methodology for EDUs in those 5 years was based on usage, and so now, sorry, residents are on the hook for more, that's fine. I just want to make sure that we're sort of clear-eyed that I think at least 0.08 of that 0.16 is due to that effect.
I appreciate that. Absolutely. It might be helpful. You're saying de minimis, put a number to it for the next meeting so that we can just very consciously say that we understand that this is the impact, and then if we decide to go that route, or if we want to fix it to the 2020 split, we could discuss that, but I think that would be the thing, but I think the consensus right now would be to just continue as is, unless I hear otherwise, but that would be what I would think. Okay,
Thanks.
all right, well, thanks Trevor for the comments, as always.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it. Okay, I don't see any hands up or up. Go ahead, please, to the podium.
You didn't ask for hands up.
I said I didn't see any hands up in the room, sorry.
Both statements are correct.
Okay.
But,
Could you please go back to the slide that shows the 1A versus 1B? And what's included in them? Okay, thank you. So Howard Hoffman, 34101 Yarrow. So when this was developed and presented at previous meeting, myself and quite a few other of my neighbors thought we were given two less than ideal choices. And I think there is another choice. Obviously, there's an infinite number of possibilities, but I'd like to propose Model C that would take the best of Model A and the best of Model B and make them into what I think would be the fairest. So if you go back to Model A and just say everybody starts at 0.6, okay, no differentiation between condos and single family, and then use building area in increments as proposed, not with those specific EDUs, you'd have to recalculate. You know, it's just a calculation to then figure out the number of EDUs per square foot needed to, and now I'm just talking about the residential. So if you would take Model B, which is everybody's equal, which I don't think is fair, and Model A, if you tweak it by saying, yeah, everybody starts at 0.6, regardless of the housing type, and then add on per square foot. I think then you'll come up with a Model C that would be better for everybody on the residential side.
What do you mean by better for everybody?
Well, it's going to be, again, no longer usage based. That's the first key. Is that
Well, for all three cases, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it will be better for everybody as these two, not relative to A and B, but I don't think B, where everybody is completely the same, is fair. And I don't think A, where condos get a 20 to 40% discount, is fair. I don't see why condos should be treated different. They're not treated differently in Model B. Right? So go back to Model A and make everybody start at 0.6 and then add per square footage. And I think you then have taken the best of A and B. And actually, that is what I had tried to propose to you, Brandy, and to Rick. So are we just now discussing residential, or are we also
Just residential.
discussing commercial?
Well, no, you're discussing residential and that's fine.
Right. But
We are discussing commercial in this meeting, yeah.
okay, so should I also address commercial at this time?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so on the commercial side, the way it was presented before was that the PUD and was not commercial. It was like its own special class and was going to continue with the same. Am I correct?
No, it's just, it's all commercial.
It's all commercial.
But just split out separately so that you
Just
can
the-
understand our costs relative to other commercial customers, but same rate class.
Right,
They're the-
but there was no demand charge involved. Correct. Okay, so I did meet with Brandy and Rick, and Brandy explained to me that it might take as long as a year to upgrade the meters so that we could have actual demand charges on all the commercial. And I will say this again, and that is, there is not a single other electric utility that I know of in North America that does not charge demand charges to commercial customers. And that includes Heavenly, the utility serving Heavenly, North Star, Vale, all the Vail resorts are paying demand charges. I think it's time, and if it's not possible to do it this year, then I would propose continue the existing system as you were proposing it for the next year, but get the meters in now so that demand charges can be implemented within a year of the passing of the rates.
Thanks for the comments, Howard. Appreciate it as always.
Howard.
Let's discuss, I don't see any public hands up in the room or online, so let's discuss them. Comments, I think Howard's some comments that we need to discuss and just go through the list on the decisions to be made. Let's start with the 21 cents a kilowatt hour. Randy, I guess maybe for me to help, this is not a part of the TAC. Can you go to, if you could go to the slide, decisions for board, please. So if I'm trying to remember this correctly, we're at 24 today. We had, I think, at least 4 mechanisms that we had as levers to change the usage rate. It was property tax, REX, the new contract, and the allocation of costs. And so I think
Bravo.
that all of these kind of fit into, like, there's something, a couple of items on the screen fit into this conversation because those are all things that like the usage rate.
Yes.
If I remember correctly, it was like a half cent from the property tax, a cent from the rec, and then a cent, and it sounds like now a cent and a half.
Yes.
So is that where you got that's the 2 cents that you get from 23 to 21?
Correct.
And help me again, we're at 24 now. So how do we get from 24 to, what's the 3 cents that we have?
That was just a reduction in those costs.
Like the 3 cents of the allocation, so Rex was a half cent.
The
3, you
original,
mean 23?
We're at 24 today.
right, the original 1 cent recommendation.
And the 1 cent came from, I'm just for making sure that we
The
have.
drivers for the 3
The
cent
3 cent,
difference.
yeah. How do we get from 24 today to 21 of all the components that we have been considering for this? Help remind me of how we got there, please.
So like you said, the rec reduction is about 1 cent. The property tax allocation, we had $50,000 in the usage rate component
Correct,
there.
yeah.
That gave us about 0.5 cent. We got about 1.5 cents from the hedge, was 1.4 something. And then the other was just a slight reduction in our overall cost of goods sold.
Okay, so that's the 1.5 plus half plus 1, that gets us the 3 cents to go from 24 to 21. That's not inclusive of the any reallocation of the operating costs from fixed to, or variable to fixed that we had on a chart 2 meetings ago. And so there is further opportunity to go, and I appreciate your comments on the, obviously any further reduction here has impacts of potential indications that you should be less efficient or the less cost that you have. I would also say on the flip side that you always have an incentive to save. It's maybe less penny per kilowatt hour, but there is incentive to save. And second, it incentivizes a lower usage rate, incentivizes people to use our system, electrify, and potentially move away from profile, which is another objective of ours. And then finally, that the usage rate in terms of aligning with costs, our true cost is not all the way up to 21. If our agreement is that those allocations should not be 100% to variable. So I say all of this to say that I would be okay with going lower than 21 personally. I'm not going to die on that hill today, but I would say that there's space there that if we wanted to as a board consider it.
You would be running a break-even organization with no possibility of any upside if you go lower.
I mean, in extremes, yes, but you could still go to 20 and not do that. Right? I mean, there's still a lot of space between. There's probably like 6 or 7 cents.
But
It's 6 cents, yeah.
So I'm just saying that there's still seconds. I mean, I'm not saying that we should go to 15. I'm just saying that there is opportunity to still go lower.
By increasing the base rate.
Correct.
Okay, but the majority of our customers, most of their cost is in the base rate. So it would have the effect of a small number of people saving money and more people paying more. That's the impact that it has, because the base rate is so dominant
Sure.
among residential customers. The other thing we were asked to do is try to say, how are we doing with full-time residents?
Mhm.
You know, and 1A gives them the best benefit. 1B rather.
1B gives full-time the best benefit.
It gives them the, yeah. It kind of averages everybody a little bit better than anything else between the two choices.
I'd like to ask the question if there's, what is the connection between today's fire decision, killing a proposal that has $300-something thousand of property tax going to a proposal that now roughly half of a big chunk of that 300-something thousand won't now be called upon. The whole argument over months has been that's kind of what property tax is for, is to fund services like fire. If we were to use some of that property tax to bring it back into the utilities, in this case electric, whether you use that to relieve base rate or usage is then a downstream question. So there's the property tax aspect of today's decision. There's also the fact that over the next year or two, certainly this 5-year cycle, the cost for residents is going to go up. It stands to reason that insurance is going to cost more if you can get it. And I'm going to put forward the question whether the whole split between residential and commercial on base rates ought to be reconsidered, given what it looks like we've determined from today's fire vote.
I don't see any relationship between the fire department and our electric rates.
Well, there's a relationship for every bill payer, who pays a bill, and there's now an assessment that will not fall. So there's a savings from residents in that sense, of savings that against what might have happened. And there's no connection between house insurance and utilities, but it's more expensive to live in Kirkwood now without a future fire department. And we know why the proposal failed, which brings us to the question of residential commercial splits. More burden on the commercial, perhaps.
I mean, I would say that the relationship between this rate discussion and the decision that happened there is related to the property tax allocation, and that's the key aspect of it.
I'm sorry, what did you say again?
The property tax allocation.
Yeah.
We have allocated, per our last discussion a month ago at this board meeting, or this board's meeting, we allocated $230,000, Randy, correct?
Yes.
Extra.
Not extra,
Or
$230,000 of our property taxes to subsidize electric for the reasons of our tier ratios and things like that Amanda went through. That was our decision. That was $180,000 to base rate, $50,000 to usage rate, which results in about a half cent per kilowatt hour coming down on the usage rate. That was a board decision. Now, you could say, okay, well, given the decision today, we need $230,000 more towards a fire proposal, and we could make that decision and say 0. So we're going to raise the base rate even more. And I think that is germane to this conversation in terms of property tax allocation, which is on the screen here. Because it didn't pass, that does not mean that we have the $480,000 available. That would be available if we divested the department.
correct.
As it stands today, if we were to spend, as I said, I think in the earlier agenda item, if we were to find a contract,
No, I
whatever,
understand.
so some amount of that 480 plus our operating costs plus stipends, so it's not $480,000, right? There's some allocation.
Yeah,
So
but if
there's-
you press fast forward and go a year or two out, and if it's not unlikely that we will be divesting.
Sure. In those scenarios that.
And now we have
will
property tax
taxes to
available.
allocate, and if you remember, we don't allocate any to water and wastewater now, that's our current rate structure, so you could allocate some back to those, you could put more into electrics, but I think at that, we won't know the answer to what happens to that $480,000 until September 4th at the latest, I would say. So I don't feel comfortable allocating more of the 480 to anything else until we have more clarity personally. That would be
More clarity on what's
on the
that?
fire department.
Oh, in the fire department.
Because if we're saying that we're going to go out and explore a couple of options, then we need to use potentially some of that budget to come back and fund it. So I'm not comfortable adjusting more than the 230 that we have now. I think, I think I'd be comfortable with the 230, but there's a risk there as well. And there's a perhaps that we would come back and have an emergency rates design. And if, I don't know, if we need more money, we could do that.
Yeah, so if a year from now there is no fire department, then do we have the option to then reconsider all utility rates?
Sure, we could give all the money back into these utilities and subsidize them, sure. At that time, but I'm not comfortable making that decision today on the 480.
I understood. Yeah, I don't disagree. I said it's a question.
So anyway, I mean, going back to the options on let's get to the kilowatt hour usage. 21 cents a kilowatt hour is a 3-cent reduction from where we are today for all of the reasons we've outlined. We have opportunity to move down if we wanted to. It sounds like the staff recommendation is not to do that, keep it at 21. Is there consensus that we should keep it at, move from 24 to 21? Is that the consensus of the board?
That's my vote. Are we voting on these
Yeah.
items?
I don't know, do we need a vote on all of it? I don't think we need a
No.
formal vote, but John, if you want to chime in, consensus on 21, is that okay?
Yeah,
So it sounds like 21, okay, so 21, sounds good, we'll kind of go in order here, the public hearing on May 1st, I think that is fine, I think that's in the spirit of what we've been trying to do, and that's fine.
That assumes we decide enough so we can actually tell
Correct.
customers what the new rates might be.
Predicated on us making enough informed decisions today,
Okay.
but maybe that won't happen, and so we'll have to push this out, but let's keep the conversation going. So I think the next one is I don't know, I think the commercial base, let's go to the commercial existing base rates. I think that is what we discussed before. It sounds like the consensus is to just let the kilowatt hours fall and not apply. This is the question of Trevor. It sounds like the consensus was to just move it forward, the 50 EDUs that are washed around. Randy, we asked you to give us a quantification of this, but for now, the consensus is that we should just move forward as we would stand to. Is that still the case?
I don't support that as strongly as I did this morning.
Okay.
And don't have I'm not sure
Okay.
if one can discuss it here or in TAC or.
Well, I think we've discussed it pretty thoroughly today. I would say you and Bob are on the TAC and Randy will quantify this for us more explicitly. I would be comfortable moving with the board decision of just allocate as is. And when we quantify this a little bit more clearly, we can decide that affirmatively, maybe in May or, whatever, but.
Yeah, I mean, again,
But I welcome you to explore it.
I'll say it again, the commercial voters today sank the fire proposal and this will over time lead to significant increase in the cost of having a home in Kirkwood. And so, one of those costs is utilities and one of the most important splits is commercial residential. And I think we should consider that now as we move this new rate structure forward.
Do you have a comment there, Bob?
Every utility should operate independently. The goal of one utility isn't to subsidize another one or somebody else's behavior. Electric rates should be based on the cost of delivering the power. If you do anything else differently, you're just perturbing the economics.
We could, in the customer, if we decide to go forward, we could leave, as you mentioned earlier, Bob, an asterisk saying commercial will be further discussed at the May meeting. Please come.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I generally agree with Bob. What you're saying is that we are running utilities independently, and
There is
services.
lots of art in the science of setting electric rates, and that's just French for wiggle room. There are plenty of good validations for changing the burden of costs that our commercial customers bear, and one would be equally valid and supported through cost accounting and any other, as the other. So I think we have I believe we have plenty of leeway to alter this split. Enough said for now, I guess.
So I encourage you to look at that, make sure it makes sense, and go from there. Okay, let's go to the.
Oh, wait. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, I think the electric rate structure should be based on the cost of electricity, and I'm not in favor of trying to subsidize different initiatives with fire or propane use and things like that. I think these services have to stand on their own.
Either way we do it, this will be based on the cost of electricity.
I don't think Chris is saying that we should cross pay.
Well, that's just what that was the discussion was the fire, the decision about fire had an impact on electric. So that's what I'm addressing, Doug.
Yeah, I raised the question of property tax and how we allocate property tax might change down the road,
It might.
within the year. I mean, not.
And maybe we could avoid the CPI increase 2 years from now through some other savings.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was said in conjunction with the split between commercial and residential.
These are two separate things, although they're prompted by the same question, and that is with the fire vote going down, A, we have property tax, which may down the road soon be available, and B, the thing went down because of the commercial vote. So, I've said it already.
That's a future decision, and I personally don't think we would be well off without a fire department, and would not want to curtail further efforts to keep a fire department in Kirkwood. And having the property tax available is an important component to being able to pay for that fire service.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have clarity on this. Thank you. I think the last one here would then just be not the last one, but the next one would be the residential allocation options. So we have 1A and 1B presented, and Howard's given us a 1C.
And the phase in.
And the phase in. Let's start with the phase in. Can there be consensus on that? I think there was last meeting. So is there phase in consensus? Did you have a comment?
Yeah, I just have a question. It's
Sure.
like, is it not true? And if you phase this in, that means everybody else is gonna be phased. Everybody else is gonna pay under the existing system still for.
No.
No.
Year?
What it means is whatever the change between what your current EDU is and 1.16, that difference will be adjusted 25% for 3 years until the 4th year when you're at the new E EDU.
The new rate structure the old rate structure would done as of July 1st. It's just phasing in the cost movements that people face of the new rate structure. So ostensibly, if you move to this, if we did something similar 5 years from now, there would be none of that. That wouldn't be a discussion. It's just because, as Brandy said, there's a $700 shift for some people and then 84 for others. And that would just be, instead of going in 1 year, you're paying $84 more, you're paying 25%
But
of
you
that.
phase in the good news for some with the bad news for others so that it's
revenue neutral over
to
time.
the
Yeah.
district.
And why not do it over 3 years then, instead of 4?
It's arbitrary.
I'm sure 25 is easier than
Okay.
33.
No fractions.
Yeah.
Until the repeating decimals are harder. I don't know.
That was.
What it means is if you look at the most common case, which is someone going from $60 to $126, then it's, making it $15 a month increase as opposed to $20 a month, trying to give people, space to adjust. And you don't want to take 12 years because we only have 5.
Right.
So 25% says it's a 15. For a lot of customers, it's a $15 a month increase.
And I can just say from having watched on the TAC that Brandy and Bob have gone through all these models with an eye to how do you cause the least amount of disruption for as many people as possible. So these outlier, I want to call them outlier cases like the one you showed, but that these are as frequent as possible. In other words, minimizing disruption has been a goal of the whole study.
So-
Can't avoid it though,
Good.
because you're making a change.
Yeah, so for 25, is there a consensus on the phase in, or does anyone have any discussion on that?
I support it.
John?
I'm good with the 25% phase in.
I am too.
Okay, good, so let's phase it in. All right, so then let's talk about the options of 1A, 1B, and then Howard's proposed C, which would be if I stated correctly, it would be a 0.6 EDU plus a building square footage.
It'd be 0.5 per 1,000 square feet.
Something
It
like
would be 1C.
that. Staff is recommended and the TAC is recommending 1B. Does this TAC and staff still recommend 1B after hearing Howard's proposal, or do you have any other thoughts on it that you'd like us to discuss?
We did model the 1C proposal, and there were different people affected differently, but there were still a lot of changes. And so it was not, in our opinion, an improvement to either of the existing.
I mean, I will come back. My question comes back is what I said last time, which is, I mean, I think I know the answer, but I will ask you, Brandy. Is there a high correlation between square footage and our cost of service?
No.
Because the panel size really is what you're looking at for maximum usage of the service.
Which is your demand. It's like it's like an ultimate demand charge, essentially. I think that to me that's what I said last time, is that I worry you're just trading someone arbitrariness for another one in the kilowatt hours versus square footage, because neither of them really indicate in that way. So this also would not be simple, because we'd have to get property tax rolls every year and have to apply that. So it's not simple to do. I know, Howard, you gave us content to keep it simple, which I appreciated. And I think it's also the fairness to me says you would have the same kilowatt hour usage in two identical condos, except for one being a couple square foot smaller or larger. How is that fair when the service is the same? The cost of service is the same.
The other thing that we talked about is for our other services, every resident is treated the same. And so there's an argument that treating everybody the same, avoid some of the arbitrariness of it. And in just looking at all these different cases that we've done, it has kind of the greatest benefit to the most people. Keeping it that way. The disadvantage is the very low usage people. And also the other thing we looked at is when you say, why did somebody's usage drop over 3 years? And then you look at their residency, and it's their residency dropped. So having and so we tried to look and make sure that the full-time residents don't see any disadvantage, and that's one model to look at. And then the other is for the non-full-time residents, there's a lot of fluctuation from year to year. There just is in this, in the community that we're in.
And it's not tied to square footage, or, there isn't anything that we could tie it to try to smooth that out, because it's really variable all over any of the choices we're making.
Okay. So what are people's thoughts? 1A, 1B, or I don't know why there's a 1 in front of it. It's just kind of A, B, or C.
I think you invented the terminology.
Did I?
Yes, I wasn't here, but that was reported to me. That you,
A, B, and C. I don't know.
we came up with.
We'll say 1A, 1B, 1C, just because I don't know why there's a 1 in front of it. Because we had 2A, 2B, 2C. So I don't know. Thoughts, Ford?
1B.
Chris, Don?
Yeah, there's not a strong correlation between square footage, and it's more complex to implement. So I'd go with 1B.
Chris?
Yeah, I support the 1B.
I'm like 58% towards 1B.
Yeah, I know.
Some have a strong, but
Yeah.
it just keeps coming back to, you can go through these things and say, well, why did we do the breakpoints at these square footages or whatever? And you can look for some mathematical correlation, but it comes down to, well, I'd love to have everybody be on the same and then drive that base rate down by reducing our fixed costs.
Yeah,
You know, that's my mission in life.
I'm there at I'm also 58%.
Yeah.
It just defies, like, it's unintuitive to say that houses of such different profile all be treated the same, but I defer to Brandy, who's looked at and Bob, who've looked at the numbers so carefully, and the data just speaks that 1B's deserving of 58% support.
Kind of, yeah.
57 is the number for today, I think, but anyway, you get the point.
Yeah.
And that's weighted.
That's weighted by your ballots, benefit received. Okay, then I guess 1B it is that we'll move forward with at this point. Information and customer letter, that's
In our communications, we say staff and board propose this scenario. We don't list out B's and C's and other variations, right? Yeah.
But the letter, okay, so the letter was written without knowing which way the board went, but the easy, and so the letter has different language depending on the board decisions. You can see the letters is in the packet. The other thing that you can see is that the monthly cost impact, Randy changed that on the second page.
Can you zoom in a little bit, please?
So if you look at that customers don't see it as EDUs. They see it as, this is what you currently pay in a base rate. This is what you'd pay for each of the next 4 years. So that's an actual customer example that's been anonymized, but that's what the residential customers would see. The commercial customers, since they don't have anything being phased in that we know of yet, so they would have an asterisk saying that the commercial rates have not been finalized. If they don't change, this is what it would look like.
And then for the commercial customers, Howard noted again the demand charge. Trevor brought up the new rate, new commercial customer, capacity, demand charge essentially, or the
A capacity charge based on the transformer and the panel.
Right.
And the test case we've asked the consultant to use is to look at a level 3 charger as an example and say, what would we charge for a level 3 charger? How would you calculate that? And then how does that compare to a lift, to try to make sure that it's in the same range as what we already do. And then that would be the way we would do any new commercial customers.
Then the interruptible rate class is another. So there are a couple of pieces that we need to come to with a commercial by the May meeting.
Right. The other thing that was brought up in Trevor's letter is the 1 EDU minimum applied to commercial. And I think that's a good point, that there are 16 commercial accounts that are less than 1.
Sure.
So I appreciate that he brought that up, and the TAC would look at that as part of proposals for next month.
So it sounds like you have a whole list here of commercial items to consider for us, please.
Yes.
Yeah, correct.
Thank you. All right, well, thanks. I don't think did I cover everything?
Was that everything on the list?
Just the previously decided, we're still,
Well, I think we decided on that in the 21 cents, right? Because the property tax allocation, rec, and expense allocation, that's all from the 21%. So I think we've covered everything at this point. Well, I'll say again, I know lots of community involvement
Was
here.
there any feedback on the customer letter? Otherwise, this will probably go out on Monday.
I think
It's very good.
Well done.
Okay.
I'll just say thank you again to the community, people here today, people online, certainly providing us a lot of feedback for the last many months on this. So I'm glad that we're making progress, and I think we're getting to a better place, and really appreciate everyone's patience and thoughts on this. It's really great. All right, we're going to move on to agenda item. I'm sure that we're on this. Agenda item 10E This is a finance update. Administrative Manager Leach, but for only a couple more weeks, right?
May 15th.
So 5 or 6 more weeks with Terry.
Oh. All right, we are reviewing January financials and February preliminaries. So overall, we're on track. We did receive our second installment of snow removal contract revenue in January and also property tax payment from Alpine County. Are there any questions on the overview before we move on to the balance sheet?
Yeah. Which one you want? 58?
Go back.
Period, pounds.
Right there.
Okay.
All right. So on the balance sheet, our total operating cash and capital reserve are above budget. This is favorable. This is a favorable variance, primarily driven by the timing of collections and property tax payments, as well as the rolling of the Rust note, which eliminated a planned cash flow outflow during the period. Any other questions on the balance sheet? You want to go to the combined income statement? Okay.
Yeah, I think the variance you're seeing in budget versus actuals is based on the unbudgeted operations and maintenance we did for things like the Loop Road project and some fire hydrant replacements. You'll see that there in the residential, you'll see a large variance. That was a billing error that's been corrected, so that'll true up next month. That was about 137,000. And the final variance is primarily caused by snow removal was budgeted on a cash basis, and it's being recorded on an accrual basis as we provide this service. So that means you see on the budget a couple of large items when the snow removal payments were budgeted to be made, but the expense is being taken on a monthly basis the way it's supposed to be. So that's causing a variance as well. Terry, I think you said, and then we're also, usage isn't very high this year. So probably projecting we're probably net income $70,000 or $80,000 lower than what we'd like.
Yes.
Once you account for those 3 items, the unbudgeted operations and maintenance, the snow removal accrual, and the billing error.
Yes, that's correct. All right. Any other questions on the combined income statement or any of the individual income statement? Okay, we can move on to preliminaries.
You go to employee housing, I think there's a variance there too, which is we hadn't budgeted for the new condo, and the new condo is starting to accrue expenses. So they're kind of small numbers, so they don't jump out at you, but I think that's the variance in that area.
Okay. Okay, February preliminaries. Any questions on the preliminaries?
Not questions, but the comments is the, snow removal makes that look a little better than it actually is. So it's not a bad preliminaries, but they're not as good as they appear.
Yeah. Okay, cash flow. Okay, so we have a new cash flow report in here.
Like it.
Yeah.
It's good.
We have Matt on the call. I know we were working together on putting this together, and he did a great presentation during the finance meeting.
Do we want to have Matt chime in?
Ooh, well, you're gonna need to have to take an action over there to make that happen. All right, Matt, you can unmute yourself.
There you go.
All right, I think it worked. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to be able to share a new report that we've gone through with the Finance Committee. We're going to make a couple of small edits to it as we go forward, but really the goal is to be able to look on a consistent basis at the cash flows for the organization, understand how the overall cash flow impacts the individual funds, mainly the operating fund, the main resources used for operating the organization. And also be able to look as we progress through the year at where we're forecasting our cash to end up. And so that's what this document does. I'll quickly just comment that the top half, on a GAAP basis, the financial reporting model that's required for the organization shows the actual cash results from operations, investing activities, and financing activities. This is through January, which is the same reporting period that we were just discussing. So that first box shows the July, August, September, October, November, December, and January actual results from cash flow. The second box below that, I just want to point out, if you're looking at those individual columns, the cash flow is done organization wide, but we really wanted to be able to highlight, so that gray row highlights the operating fund, and the row right below that is the capital reserve account. So those are the two main accounts that we'll be considering looking at, and this kind of reconciles back for you those results to those specific accounts. And then there's some additional information down on the bottom about the actual cash balances per the bank statement and the timing differences that you'd see there.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Are there any questions on the cash flow? Okay.
Thanks, Matt, for all your help.
The 501c3 balance sheet and individual income statement.
I'm sorry, I was trying to form my question.
Yes, sorry.
Where would like the Five Star Bank balance be? Not the checking, but
Down at the bottom, bank statement balances on the
okay.
cash flow.
So that's the total cash
Correct.
Okay. And the capital reserve, where is that
And
held?
that one, operating fund, let's see.
You're just asking what capital reserve bank statement,
Yeah.
where physically, like what's the?
And what's the physical asset?
Oh, the capital reserve for the bank statement
very
is
last.
the very last line.
Yeah, but
Oh.
where is it? Is that, like, it's not
Five
five,
star.
is it 5 star?
It's
or-
five stars. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry about
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
that. Okay.
Could you remind us what revenue bank statement means?
Revenue is our operating cash.
Revenue bank statement.
So that would be our 5-star bank statement balance.
Perhaps in the future one, just put like an asterisk or like a footnote of like the actual, financial institution at which, or vehicle, if it's like an investment or whatever it is that this lies in.
Okay.
I think a lot of us think of those names as those, and I think both are good.
Okay.
That's good suggestion.
We will make the addition to that.
Thank you.
Okay, but the capital reserve line and then the capital reserve bank statement are always the same number. You're just repeating them.
Correct.
Okay.
That
Not a
doesn't really
complaint, I was
change.
just
Yeah.
like checking.
Oh, that's on purpose, Bob. Hopefully this puts between the three sections, and then it should put back to the balance sheet too.
Yeah. I'm just testing my understanding.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's because there's no reconciling.
I'm not
items.
doing great, but I'm doing better. This is much Much better than what we've had the last 13 years.
Yeah, I mean, you could kind of figure it out from the old format, but this is more complete. It's easier to validate, and then it's more industry standard, you know.
Yeah.
Cash flow statements start with operations, investments, and then financing activities. So
Yeah.
anybody coming in new to this will say, oh, I kind of know what's going on, where the old one was very custom to KMPD.
Yeah. Good.
501c3.
501c3.
Are you sure?
Doesn't matter anymore.
All right, so we have the balance sheet. Any questions on the balance sheet? The income statement, year to date, donations were $12,863. Any other questions?
All right, let's move on to agenda item 10F, budget timeline.
Okay, for 10F, 10G, and H, I'll be really brief. Basically, just as we do every year at this time, we introduce the budget timeline to the board to kind of give you an idea what we're working on and what we're planning to do for approval. So here, clearly in the timeline, you can see that this is really going to be the first presentation. Finance has seen this already once, but now the board gets to see the process. Basically, in finance, and just so you know, finance and the board's packet, it's really the same information. We did get a lot of good information from finance, but we haven't had a chance to implement that into some of the budget and the draft budget assumptions along its draft capital budget. So unless there's any questions about the timeline, I'll move on to the next agenda item.
Okay, good. Keep going.
So the budget key assumptions, again, obviously simple revisions of dates and times and so forth, but we're more or less, like we discussed in finance, using the same, we plan to use the same property tax allocations. And then the only other, I guess, big thing in the assumptions, and I'm not going to go right to that page, but later on, we're going to discuss the employee handbook, and we're going to adopt a section where we suggest having a 10-month employee, which would save on some labor costs. So that'll be obviously included in the key assumption as we move along. And of course, the board is going to be able to see the key assumptions at every opportunity until they pass the budget. And that's all I have on the key assumptions for now, unless there's any, again, questions from the board. Hearing none, we'll go on to the next one, the capital plan. Basically, again, you've seen this before, but we're going to update, include new numbers to reflect all the information that we've shared today, as well as what was talked about in finance. And a narrative will be included in the packet with a brief discussion for each project as we go along as well. So in brief, it just, again, just letting the board know we're working on the budget behind the scenes. And if there's any questions through the process, we certainly will hopefully get them through finance first and then bring it to the board.
My only question, Rick, is just in terms of the budgeting and the expenses, is everything aligned? Because we just went through all this master planning and obviously rate studies. Is everything consistent with that in terms of what you're planning on presenting, or are there any variances that we need to be aware of?
At this time, I'm not aware of any variances other than some of the budget templates in the years past weren't as accurate as they could have been. So we, through staff, and I appreciate staff's work, Brandy, Amanda, of course, Terry, to go back and just double check what we did, how we came up with that number. Was that a 3-year average, 5-year, whatever it was, that gets us that budget template to refine and update the template and also reflect all the master plans. So
perfect. I just want to make sure that we spend a lot of time on those and we budgeted for them in our rate studies, that we are aligning that with this.
Agreed. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions on any of this?
One question on the capital budget. The planning for the powerhouse generators is not included in this. Is that correct?
There is up under the top.
Can you stand closer to a microphone, please? Thank you, Brandy. Over there or over here, whatever you want to do.
Sure. There is a upgrade to powerhouse capacity. It's not in the 5-year, but it is in the 35-year. So since it has not been considered as part of this rate study, it's not in the 5-year. It's the very first line under capacity component.
Oh, okay.
Wastewater, electric.
Okay.
1.5 million.
All right.
Since you brought up capital, you'll see 2 new columns in the capital improvements projects plan. There'll be a funding source, and so we're trying to identify where the funding source might be and what the project type is. And the appendix for that is on the very first page. Help me out. Yeah, first page. Oops, there it is. At the very bottom, you'll see the R's for reserve fund, D for new debt funded, so forth. So anyway, this is probably the biggest change that you've seen over the last several years on the capital improvement projects. And we'll bring this back.
Right. So move on to agenda item 10I. This is employee 2026 employee handbook update. This is an annual item that we look at.
So attached to the board's packet is a red line version of the revised employee handbook. I'm not going to go into detail too much with the staff report, but I want to let the board know that we did consult with the HR consultants as well as counsel on the changes, and we are compliance with state law. The biggest change, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, is that to help benefit the seasonal employees as well as the full-time employees with snow removal, there was a recommendation or suggestion that maybe we could offer a 10-month full-time employee as part of our employee benefit package or employee handbook. Essentially, this is allowing the employee to remain as a active employee, suspend their sick time, their vacation time accrual per se, but also save us labor costs. And so when I go down to the next page, you'll see some of the savings that we're suggesting by doing this. But it not only benefits the employee, I think it benefits the district as well. And I think it'll help with the employee retention, especially with snow removal. And so far, we've only have 2 possible candidates that this will work for. One is our snow removal manager, as well as possibly the mechanic that's on staff right now. The other change that you'll see on page 8 is basically rewording some of the language within the wage compliance for overtime. It can be very confusing when you have operators who work 12, 13, 14-hour days, take 2 days off, the work weekends, and then, the question is, am I eligible for overtime, time and a half, double time? So we just wanted to clarify the language to help, especially the new seasonal employees who come on board, on how our overtime works, as well as that we're FLSA following those standards. Another notable change is the housing utility reimbursement. We're suggesting just a $20 change per month for our employees. As you know, we increase electric water rates and so forth. We also don't have a CPI based into the employee housing reimbursement. So we just wanted to acknowledge that. And again, this is just another incentive for us to try to keep employees living in our housing available during emergency situations, and especially after hours for being on call. Another couple things, the telecommuting, we tried to clarify the language with that to make sure that there's no assumptions by employees that they're allowed to telecommute, multiple days a week, guaranteed. This policy was created to help the district during road closures and allow staff to continue to work remotely. And in some cases, maybe on special projects that they might be able to work remotely. So we just clarified the language on that. For personal protective footwear, it was brought to our attention that, we offer $150 boot reimbursement to our employees now, but boot wear in the summer and the winter can be completely different. And so we're introducing another $150 per employee per year. So they're getting a twice a year boot reimbursement, just so they're wearing the proper PPE and that it's continued to be safe and not a snow boot worn in the middle of summer. So you can see here clearly the financial impacts. Again, I think net, I think it's a gain for the district. But more importantly, I think the improvements to the employee handbooks not only promote good well-being with the employees, but also I think a benefit for the district as well. And that concludes my report unless there's any questions.
And I'll just say personnel did review this and recommends approval.
In the section on scheduled telecommuting, we're just no longer allowing it, or?
No, we're still allowing it. We just revised the language on that a little bit. And that's.
It got moved above it.
Oh, it got moved.
Yeah, page 37 of him.
Oh, okay.
It still says telecommuting.
Okay, sorry, that's a typo. Sorry. Just some language changes. And the scheduled telecommuting was actually removed from the handbook.
Right.
Yeah, I misspoke.
It wasn't replaced, it
Wasn't
was just
replaced. It
removed.
was, sorry, what I meant to say is telecommuting is still possible, but scheduled telecommuting, I think is what Rick was saying, is that
Is removed.
is removed.
Yeah, okay,
I
that's
meant
what
to say, it wasn't removed entirely, as in you
okay,
can't telecommute. I misspoke.
that's good.
Okay,
Okay.
we need a motion for this, I imagine.
Yeah, I would like to have a motion for this.
I move to approve the revised employee handbook.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call vote, please, Peter.
Peter Rotunda,
Aye.
Epstein,
Aye.
Schroeder,
Aye.
Hooker,
Aye.
Nordberg, aye. It's unanimous.
Great, thank you. Let's move on to agenda item 10J, performance reporting and aquifer levels.
Performance reporting in the normal format is included in the packet. No major surprises this month. I won't go through this utility by utility, but I'd be happy to answer any questions if the board has any.
Are we gonna hit 6.8 million kilowatt hours?
It's
Yeah.
looking fairly close, but we'll have to see how the next few weeks play out.
All right. Any questions?
Is this the time to ask, if I could, about the issue we've heard about before, the noise from the wastewater treatment plant from fixing the ventilation systems?
I would think would be in more
Does
of
that
the
come later?
operations report, possibly,
Yeah.
We can do that in operation.
just to this.
Yeah, you should.
Okay, any questions? All right, let's move on to agenda item 10K, KMPD logo.
After numerous discussions and a lot of hard work by people like Sandy Goldberg and staff, and of course Bob Epstein, our board member, the communications committee has discussed and basically worked with the University of California, Berkeley to develop and improve the district's logo, which would be introduced as a needed basis. Obviously, the low hanging fruit first, meaning like if it's quickly done on the website or electronic messaging, then we can certainly implement the logo. But in the board's packet, as you'll see, is the logo itself. And the goal of this rebranding is just to improve the identity of the district, to illustrate that we are community-based. And so without further ado, here's the essential logo itself, and I'll go down to the last slide, which is a full color, three color version. I think it's the last one. Oh, too far. Maybe it's a couple up. There we go. But you'll notice actually in this boardroom here behind you is the kind of the older look of the logo. The font's been refined, the colors have been changed, and there's a sort of a crescent moon. I think Director.
It's a sun.
A sun. Or moon. Director Dorman called it a moon, and I've heard it as a sun, but it also stands for C, for community powered and customer focused. So
You can be whatever you want it to be.
It just depends what kind of a mood you're in. Really.
Yeah. The designer called it the rising sun.
So this logo is essentially developed at no cost, which we appreciate. And so staff's direction, as well as the committee, is to approve the new logo, and I would need a vote to do this to implement this moving forward.
Thanks for everyone who's worked on it. Really appreciate it. Any thoughts? I have maybe one small, really tiny critique or question. I know we're well past these
Now is your
things.
time.
I just worry that in a three-toned perspective like this, that the white of the KMPD, our name is Curb Meadows Public District. Also having the community powered customer focused in white feels like it blends the title of our organization into also including that for me mentally as one thing, as opposed to that just being like a tagline. Also, I think you might need to get Matt, demote him, as I think he's still unmuted. Yes. Thank you.
Yep, sure.
That would be my only thought, is that the KMP, Koger Meadows Public Utility District, should probably stand alone in its own color. It'd be my, and when there are multiple colors. But that would be my only piece of feedback at this point.
The colors would only be applied in reference to what else is going on. Right, because it's never displayed in isolation. So those colors are just different ways it could be done.
Got it.
The main thing, if you back up Rick, back up one, keep going backwards.
Yep.
Right there.
Thank you.
The lower one would be what would appear on the customer letter that goes out on Monday.
And I like that that's a smaller font and weight that gives that differentiation.
So that's the standard one that would appear on stationery. And if there was room, it would be stacked vertically. But typically, you know, in the envelope with return address, et cetera, you tend to go horizontal.
Great.
The phone number is there to appear on the trucks or on the, sorry, the transformers. On that, if you go down
A
again,
couple more, I think it's
Yeah.
that one there, yeah.
that's what would appear on the transform, one of those.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone who's worked on this. Bob, I know you spent a lot of time on this yourself, so thank you.
Bob, isn't it true you lined up student resources, a free resource to get this design done, right?
Yeah, there's a training program at UC Berkeley.
Thank you.
So
That was a key aspect of feedback that we received on this, is not to spend district money on this, which we did not.
we
So
did not.
thank you, to all that. This is great. So we need a vote. So motion and then a vote.
I move to adopt the design proposal as in the staff report.
A second.
I'll second that.
Roll call vote, please.
Rotunda.
Aye.
Epstein.
Aye.
Schroeder.
Aye.
Tucker.
Aye.
Norbert, aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Let's move on to agenda item. I guess it would should be 11. 11, major project updates.
So really no changes from the last month when you saw this, but we are going to make sure that we introduce any changes to the scheduling. What I'm trying to say is that we're actually finishing up Q1 course, we're moving in Q2. And so we'll be moving some of the colors forward if necessary. But again, really no changes, nothing to add unless the board wants me to add more to it.
Okay. General managers report.
I have one thing to report for general managers, and let me sorry. Just back up to our agenda real quick. Gosh, maybe. There we go. I would hope to inform the board that we are closing on our Rust loan with the USDA. This loan is a $7,170,000 loan at a low interest rate of 1.75%.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond the district or bond council's control, i.e. Rust couldn't get their software to execute the final letter, we had to delay it a week. So we're going to close the loan next Friday, the 10th. That's our goal. CoBank has been geared up, prepared for us to receive the money so we can pay them. So hopefully on May 1st, you'll hear that we've closed the loan. And
Thank you.
that's really the only general manager's thing to report. At this time, unless there's any questions on the board.
Feel free to let us know sooner if you have news.
We will.
All right, thank you.
And thanks for all the work. I know that was administrative challenge. It was really pretty tough. So thanks much. And yeah, $7.5 million at 1.9%, not a bad deal.
Yeah, I know Rick, you had many countless hours and nights working on this, so it's a lot of work to get this over the line, and we'll get there soon. So thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to operations report number 13.
We can talk about the wastewater treatment plant plans. So as we reported at the EOP committee meeting and the last board meeting, we are working on an in-house project to install some sound baffles, for lack of a better word, at the wastewater treatment plant to see if this cuts the sound that is projecting across the meadow. We've met with numerous residents on the east side who are the ones who are bringing this up to our attention. And we understand the concern. Staff did investigate the noise level currently at the area beside the wastewater treatment plant at our property line and out across the meadow. We are not in violation of anything here. We checked county noise ordinance levels and that sort of thing. And we're within those ordinances. But that being said, we understand that this is a concern for people. And so we are making an attempt to fix it. We're waiting for snow to melt enough to get a lift back behind the wastewater plant. But one of our staff members who works at the wastewater plant is on point here, and we're looking forward to trying this out. And then we'll make recordings before and after to try to measure the impact and see if we get good results there. One of the conversations I had this week was in previous administrations, some attempt was made to plant trees behind the plant. That might be something that we can look at also, watering the landscape that's back there. But we are working on this, and I don't know, Chris, if you had specific questions about it or if you were just looking for an update.
Oh, the update's great. Could you just describe the scope of, is this one big baffle, one big fan, or is it a whole lot of smaller ones? The purpose obviously is to get noxious air, bad smelling air out of the building.
That's right. Not only bad smelling, but also corrosive air because the gases that are generated at the wastewater treatment plant because of the processing are corrosive to not only our electronics, but also the concrete of the building and basins. So getting that outside is really important. There are multiple fans and they are between the rafters of the building. So our intention is to apply soundproofing curtains on the ends of the baffle to see if we can. It's not a
soundproofing curtains on the end of a baffle.
So to attempt to redirect the sound so that it does not, and so that it does not radiate out the same way that it is now. We've used those types of materials inside the plant before and had some good results. So that is our intention here to give this a try.
Cool. Obviously, this affects some homeowners more than others, and probably a very small percentage. But our responsiveness, and you've been responsive to meet with people, will not go unnoticed. People are, I hear from neighbors who are concerned about this problem in upgrading and fixing so much about the plant. We did cause for them a problem, and it's great to hear that you perceive it, even though it doesn't put us in violation. It's great that you perceive it to be a problem. So thank you.
Yeah, we want to be good neighbors.
It'll be good for PR in the parts of the community.
All right, thank you. Let's move on to standing committee reports. Finance.
I think we've done plenty of finance today already.
Thank you. EOP.
I've got nothing to add.
Communications. Yes.
we've seen the new logo, so isn't that great? I was actually, but Bob ran the last meeting, I was not there, but obviously the priority for communications had been to get out the vote. And it seems like we did a good job at over 50% residential turnout. Obviously it would have taken a Herculean get out the vote to overcome what happened. So now the attention turns to the electric letter that Bob has drafted and shared already. So we've talked about that. Nothing else to say really, Bob. Anything else?
Okay, personnel, so the handbook, the only thing I'll also add is that talked about encouraging the use of this room potentially for HOA meetings if they'd like this summer. I also will say, just as a communication / thing, I will be reaching out to HOA presidents in the next couple of days, partially to announce the outcome of the 218, but also line up the HOA meetings. Rick and I and Brandy did that last summer. We went to 5 or 6 in person, 4 in person, a couple of Zooms. I can't remember, but it was a lot. And so we'll try to do the same thing again this year. IT and cybersecurity.
Nothing to report.
Great. LAFCO did not meet.
It's gone into hiding.
Temporary advisory committees. I guess at this point we have one, which we discussed and formed earlier today, and we will.
Rate study.
Oh, sorry. Rate study's not over. Thank you. We have 2, electric rate study and one we formed earlier today. So rate study, anything else more to add?
No, it was all in the presentation.
All right. And then we don't think we have anything to add for the fire.
Haven't met yet,
Haven't met yet, so
You didn't need last month.
but we will soon.
we will see.
You know what?
Okay, and then general board discussion. I just have one very small item. Just from a streamlining of our agendas, I noticed that our typical agenda item 9, but today 10, it's called items for board action, but we often have the finance, and we always have the finance update and the performance and reporting update, almost to your exact question. I personally would like to move those out of 9 because we never take action. They're just reports. And so what I'd like to do is have at the end, scratch major project updates as a main item, move that as a sub item to general manager's report, have operations report, take all of the aquifer and reporting items, move that as a sub item, and then finance similarly move that as a new section that we'll call like financials report, and then have that as an item with those as sub items, so that we can really have that agenda item 9 as true things that we are discussing, potentially taking action on. Is that okay with people? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, change is good, except when it happens to you.
Okay, it's been a very long day, and for all of you that have participated all day, thank you, staff, our team at Francisco Associates, obviously this morning, and then everyone here to participate. So thank you, everyone. We'll adjourn today's meeting. Our next regular meeting is for Friday, May 1st, 2026 at 2 p.m. We'll see you then.
Very well led, Mr. Vidarotondo. Just don't hit us with that mallet.